I will say, this ride, probably my favorite type of ride. And I'll explain why.
Oh my God, when did they put a hill here? Okay. What workout am I doing? Why is it my favorite? Blah, blah, blah. Today, it's threshold. Now, typically I'll do 1 to 2 of these a week. And it's the one workout I don't skip. One, you get a lot out of doing 1 or 2 of these a week. You don't need a huge amount of volume. Something to compare against would be like zone 2. Zone 2 is great if you can stick some volume into it. 4, 5, 6 plus hours a week. Really get the most out of it. Threshold, I probably do a total, in terms of working time in threshold, what would it be? Probably like maximum an hour in the threshold zone per week. Maybe a little bit more if I'm doing high volume week. But I'll go into a little bit more depth in terms of like why I actually like it.
I'm feeling as good as your luck, shining like a moon ring. I can hear you chit-chin. I'm high on catching your drift, melting down the blacktop, sticking to my flip-flop. Give me that heat. Looking for the action, causing a reaction. I just want a style like living in your moment, loving how you own it. I just want the style like nobody got style like you. Nobody got style like you.
Okay, let's talk about this. Okay, on paper, threshold workouts don't seem very exciting. You're not doing massive explosive power numbers. You're not destroying yourself with VO2 max efforts. You're honestly just sitting at a challenging but controllable pace for an extended period of time. But honestly, that's why I think threshold workouts is one of the most important workouts you could do as a cyclist. So for instance, this workout I had 2 by 18 minutes to do. The target power was around 205 to 210 watts, which for me was 93 to 95% of my FTP, giving me about 4 watt per kilo during those efforts. And the goal wasn't to see the biggest numbers I could produce. And the goal wasn't to see the highest number I could produce. The goal was to see a high number for a long period of time. And that distinction is really important.
Also, when I left the house, it was cloudy and drizzling a little bit. Now it is like straight sun, perfectly blue skies, and I don't have a strong enough ND filter. So if this is a little blown out today's ride, I apologize. I just did 3 openers, and quickly, I have about 30 seconds and then my first effort starts. But today, threshold, 2 by 18 minutes, just under FTP. And I'll film as much as I can, but yeah, you know, it might be a little challenging. But I'll explain a little bit in terms of, I guess, the benefits of threshold and everything else, and why this is sort of like my go-to workouts. Go-to zones for, I guess, getting faster, and yeah, that's it, just getting faster. Anyways, all right, I gotta start.
Got style like you. Nobody got style like you. Nobody got style like you, like you. You're getting me all worked up. Rhythm of your hip swing, dropping my heartbeat. You hook me with the velvet rope. People lined up, wanna look, but they can't touch. Ooh, give me that heat. Looking for the action, causing the reaction.
Okay, first effort's done. Which, for threshold work, hitting the numbers bang on in the first effort, you should be able to manage, depending on how fatigued the legs are. It's the following efforts that it becomes more of a challenge. Now, my first effort was bang on. I did do a slightly, big bump. Anyways, I hit numbers bang on, which I'm pretty happy about, especially after a pretty big day on Sunday. But now I have the second effort coming up. On the note of why threshold, I find threshold work is sort of like that beautiful place of burns the legs enough and kills you enough, but doesn't kill you so much like repeated VO2 max efforts where you're really gonna struggle whatever the next day of training looks like. So threshold, I really do feel, is just that perfect combination of fatigue but still being able to recover fast enough. But in the meantime, I got 50 seconds left of this sort of recovery, rest, and then I'm gonna get stuck into the next effort.
In cycling, we talk about VO2 max a lot. And essentially what it is how big your engine is. But a caveat there is no matter how big your engine is, that doesn't automatically determine how long you can use it for. And one of the biggest determinants in endurance sport is how hard you can go while still being able to manage and flush out fatigue. So essentially being able to constantly produce a high enough power, but also be able to manage that fatigue to hold it for long durations of time. And this is exactly the territory we're trying to adjust and work on during threshold work. Now, there are studies showing that cyclists with similar VO2 max values can still have noticeably different time trial performances, depending on where their threshold sits. So having a huge engine is great, but you also want to be able to use that huge engine and a large percentage of that engine for extended periods of time. And that is, in my opinion, where a lot of threshold workouts and these specific types of efforts directly sit. So for the first interval, I held 207 watts. That's about 94% of my FTP. And that was great. That was bang on. My cadence was happy, my heart rate was relatively controlled, and the power was right in that sweet spot zone for these threshold efforts. But then I had to recover and essentially do it all again. Now, as you can see, I couldn't quite hold the same power on the second interval. It was actually quite a bit lower. Now, what was interesting was that my heart rate was actually quite controlled. So I wasn't maxed out cardiovascularly. Primarily, it was that my legs just didn't have the power with the accumulated fatigue. Now, one of the reasons is obviously that accumulated fatigue, not just from the previous 18-minute effort, but also the week before. So on Sunday, I had about a 5-hour Zone 2 ride, but I also increased my overall weekly volume quite a bit that week, by about 3 or 4 hours, if I can remember. And that's something that workouts like this, it's important to keep in mind. Now, I could have immediately thought I didn't hit the power, that wasn't a good workout, but instead you have to use the data that you have and the information from previous weeks or anything in life to adjust and reframe what it all means. This day, I didn't have the legs to reproduce these threshold workouts, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't substantial or also helpful. I learned a lot in terms of my previous week's volume and how that impacts this workout. And then also, I still managed to put my legs through pressure. And honestly, it's a good thing to see that I wasn't cardiovascular maxed out.
All right. Third. Oh, no. Second effort is done. I did not hold the power I wanted, which happens. Hey. Looks like Gladiator. Sorry if I'm about to spoil this movie. When he dies, he's flying through the field to his wife and kid, who are also dead. Complete tangent. Apologies. Oh my God, when did they put a hill here?
Aye, I'ma elevate like that. Then I'm gonna bring it right back. Go ahead, put all of my trash. I take it up to another place. I mean, how you like that? We gon' take off in the flash. You won't ever wanna go back. I promise you can count on that. Hold out. Let me check my map. Yeah, I got it. Don't stop, make it rock. Keep it going to the top. Don't stop, make it hot. Keep it going to the top. Don't stop, make it rock. Keep it going to the top. Keep it going to the top.
Okay, and this is probably one of the main points why I like Threshold so much. Within a relatively short amount of time, you create a lot of very, very good, repeatable and controllable aerobic work. Now, this becomes a workout that you can repeat quite frequently without going completely in the red and going max out for every effort. Now, there's research in trained cyclists comparing different interval lengths, and longer controlled intervals were able to produce substantial improvements, even though the shorter intervals were ridden at a higher intensity. So just because a workout hurts more doesn't automatically mean it's doing more for you. With Threshold, you might accumulate 30, 40, 50 minutes of accumulated work within that intensity. And that's a huge quantity of quality aerobic work. And because it's not treated as maximal based effort, it means it can be more controlled and more repeatable either throughout the week or throughout a single workout. And for me, that's one of the biggest reasons. Because it's controllable and meant to be repeatable, I can compare what workout I did 2 weeks ago to one I did today. Compare heart rate, data, power, everything, and understand if I'm in a bit of a slump and I need to rest and recover, or if it looks like I'm coming up to a peak in terms of fitness and performance.
I'll be serious, regardless of how the efforts go for Threshold, I find that it's still even just the most fun. Usually you're going pretty decently quick. For those efforts, I was typically up in the 40km/h range, a little bit higher for some areas. And yeah, just that alone makes it a lot more enjoyable, especially if you're doing it on flat roads and stuff. But it's one of those efforts that really sucks to do, but just feels so much better when you do it. And I don't know. I'll round off the remaining little bit, and then I'll break down the actual importance of Threshold and all the sciencey stuff once I'm home, because so much of my blood has gone to my legs from those efforts. I can't think straight right now. But anyways, I'll see you guys later.
Nobody got style like you. Nobody got style like you. Nobody got style like you.
Okay, while I
Nobody got
was
style like you.
researching this video and overall Threshold training and so on and so forth, I came across this one thing, and it seems to be a consensus that I wanted to talk about. And it's that Threshold is training your body to deal with lactic acid. And I think that's an oversimplification. Lactic acid isn't just waste in your muscles that lives there and is always a negative. Lactic acid is constantly being flushed away, used, and reproduced. And as your intensity level increases or your fatigue level increases, the process of dealing with that lactic acid becomes more and more challenging. And obviously, endurance trained athletes are going to be better at dealing with the lactic acid development that they get throughout endurance training, riding, and everything else in comparison to untrained people. So when you're training Threshold, you're sort of teetering on that line between the effort is so hard that the lactic acid is building up faster than you can dispose of it and your body can remove it, but you're not quite there yet. And that's why Threshold efforts feel the way that they do. You really are just working very hard, but not so hard that you can cross the line and you'll be absolutely cooked within a few minutes. Now, this isn't me saying that every workout you do needs to be threshold-based intervals. That is ridiculous and out of this world. Not even going to go there. You still need your easy zone 2 rides. You still need your recovery and rest days. And yeah, if you're trying to become faster as a well-rounded cyclist, you're still going to need those VO2 max efforts and those super high short burst intensity intervals. With that all being said though, if there was one workout I was going to make sure I didn't miss every single week, it is going to be threshold. I do find that the data surrounding it, and I will link everything in the description below in terms of articles that I read, shows that longer and controlled intensity intervals is going to give you the most bang for your buck in terms of fitness and development on the bike. Now, taking it back to this workout, it really is one of those workouts as well that makes you feel really proud about yourself. It's so demanding and so hard, but it's still something that typically, I didn't do it this week, you can typically do a threshold interval, rest for 5-6 minutes, and then do another threshold interval and be able to hit the same amount of power. And that is super rewarding, not just physically, but mentally. And so much of cycling, I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to, is mental fortitude and strength. So all in all, threshold is really one of those workouts that I find is going to give you the most bang for your buck without completely depleting you and leaving you absolutely wrecked for the remainder of the week. And it's just my opinion, but also I did want to give you some scientific backing and some research in there. Please feel free to read them all. I've left them in the description down below. And let me know if you feel differently. I know there's many people who analyze Pogacar's workouts and so on and so forth, where he does supposedly 15-second all-out sprints and then 10 minutes of zone 1 recovery, and he does 10 of those. And I've never tried that, but please, if there's certain workouts that you guys have tried, let me know in the comments. And until then, just keep riding your bike, enjoy it. It's all for the good fun of it. And guess I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.